We'll move to new business. Members of council, new business. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Okay. I think based on the previous vote in the last council meeting that I was not present at, I think we need to, while the mayor addressed the money in the non-utility capital fund going forward and what he's recommending, there's still the vote on the $75,000 on the CDBG funds that were associated with this project that no longer exists. So I think we need to consider what needs to happen with that money, whether it goes into a restrictive account or such.
Mr. Hanna, comment on it. Mr. Mayor.
Well, I think as part of the same recommendation as far as where the non-utility dollars will go, we'll come back to council and finance committee and recommend either reprogramming of the dollars. It may require another public hearing. We'll have to look at that, but we'll come back with some suggestions on the dollars. As far as putting in a restricted account, it's not going to expend on this project. We'll make a recommendation.
And can't be spent for anything until council would vote to reprogram. It's not going to be spent on this. It's not like we can go use it for whatever we like.
If council at their next meeting would like to put it in an escrow account, that's fine. We can address that. So we'll make a recommendation via memo to the council as to the disposition of those funds. That was our intention.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds.
I have two questions for the mayor, if I could.
Go right ahead.
One is just to go back to the parking presentation. Was this something that you would have moved forward on if you didn't have uniform support from the property owners in the south end of Main Street?
Absolutely not. I mean, we clearly went to great pains, both in the funding of the study. I thought it was important that everybody had a little skin in the game at the front end, so that we would hopefully avoid the situation that we ended up in. Not just the funding of the, if someone wants to present a problem, that's fine. Let's all work together to try to solve it. And so that's the spirit in which we approached this from the very beginning, both with the funding of the feasibility study, because I knew this was not something that that any one entity should take on. And clearly, as demonstrated through the timeline that was presented, we got input both in the approval of the recommendations as the Benoni the parking study, and every step of the way from the solution that was proposed to the design, to the architecture, to the implementation of the plan, every step of the way. And so from all of the adjacent property owners, the bookstore, the hotel, Historic Bethlehem Partnership, the college, and the church. And so I don't know what else we could have done to include folks along the way. And at no point up until recently did anybody express any concerns about the plan, anything other than total support for the plan throughout. And so we would not have undertaken this project without the support, because I, as much as anybody else, understands the sensitivity of this area, the importance of this area. It is probably one of the most photographed areas of downtown Bethlehem. And I would not, as mayor, do anything that I felt would denigrate or take away from that area, which is why I wanted the input from those institutions that have a long-standing respect and support, not just as adjacent property owners, but of stewards of Moravian history. And at no point was there a discussion of a study from 1970 or any discussion about pottery ruins. And clearly, and the pictures are what they are, and that site was not treated in the 90s as an archaeological dig. It was every bit of a construction site with heavy equipment there. So whatever disturbance we would have created as a result of these parking spots paled in comparison to what took place there in the 90s.
And as someone that attended those parking summits, those parking caucuses, I know Mr. Gonchas was there as well, and I know that at the time I had worked for Representative Samuelson, who was one of those state legislators that had helped to support the Benoni study. I think I can agree with you that it wasn't one meeting or two meetings, but it was several meetings by which the city and city council, the members of city council and the members of the administration it wasn't a plan that we had come up with as much as one that we were responding to. And I also have a question for Mr. Alpal. The work that was done in the late 90s here, this excavation when they kind of when the smithy was rebuilt. Do you know roughly how deep the excavation or the work down went?
Obviously, we don't have any plans to go up, but just just looking at the pictures and sort of scaling off by what's at the site at the time, the equipment and what have you. To us, the most important thing was it was clearly the extent of excavation probably far exceeded what we would have to excavate in order to implement our project.
That's what my next question was going to be, is whether or not the proposed construction this time would have been anywhere close to. I mean, that was some pretty big equipment. And that's granted, I don't work in the public works department, but when I see backhoes and as such, that's
Examining the photos, it certainly looks that.
okay. And then I guess the last question, I don't know if this is for Mr. Callahan or Mr. Han or Mr. Alcohol, but and I shudder to hear the response. But due to the support that we had been receiving over the last several years, can we put an estimate on how many tax dollars were spent or what we spent as a response to these entities coming forward with their support for this project?
I can't give you a number today, Mr. Reynolds, but we will do a calculation to the best of our ability, not just the tax dollars that were expended for the Pannoni study, but the staff time in public works, in engineering, PennDOT, etc. The hours that were spent in meetings with the various entities that were so supportive of this project up until a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and if Cindy might be able to send a memo to the administration, because I think when we get that bill, when we get kind of a number there, I think we should seriously consider asking for some of that money to be paid back. Because the reason why the reason why City Hall and people worked on that project was in a direct response to what was told and what was asked of City Hall and asked of the administration over the past several years. If this was a situation by which they did not want to, if it wasn't the solution they wanted, that's fine. I think we all realize now that it's not a project that we would be willing to support without the property owners down there being in full support. And obviously that's the case now that they're not. But at the same time, since we talk so often about being good stewards of public money and so on and so forth, it's not just at the last minute we can go back and say, this isn't something we want to do without taking a look at the real cost that has been spent in man hours, in money that we paid to Pannoni, so on and so forth. If it's a minimal amount, then it's a minimal amount. But I think at the very least, I would feel better if we can get a relative ballpark number on what kind of expense we even look at before many entities decided that this was not the way we wanted to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maurer.
Well, I need to confirm my involvement in this project from day one. I've obviously been a member of City Council and very much interested in the downtown and revitalization. You're sensitive to my past background. History has been basically number one in my deal on Bethlehem because I thought that's the only thing we've had to sell in downtown Bethlehem is our history. I also happen to be a member of the board of the Moravian Bookstore. And very frankly, folks, we're very fortunate to have the Moravian Bookstore in downtown Bethlehem because they are really the anchor in Bethlehem's downtown. They help keep Bethlehem alive and well, and I strongly support them, and I'm here to say that I will stand up for them and what they do. So when all this started, and I dealt with Rick Santee, and we started to contact the people in the community to find out how they felt about it, because we knew we needed more parking. And folks, if you look at what happened economically in downtown Bethlehem the last 2 years, it's disastrous. And we're lucky we haven't lost more people. And I think it's because of organizations like the Moravian Bookstore that people stay in downtown Bethlehem because we're often the major drawing card, and I'm tuned into that. But when we wanted to get more parking, we knew that it wasn't just up to us. This had to be a team effort. This has to be several people involvement. So we went to the Hotel Bethlehem, we went to Historic Bethlehem, we went to Moravian College, we went to all those that would have interest. A normal way to do it, like the mayor explained tonight. I'm really reinforcing the fact that it wasn't just his doing, because we really went to him and said, Mayor, what can you do to help parking in downtown Bethlehem? We need your help. And when he heard that we needed his help, and